Jersey's own Zach Gelb. Or maybe it's Pennsylvania. Anyhow, it's one of the two, I'm pretty sure. The Zach Gelb Show continues on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
4:16 is the time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. Phil Jackson spoke to the media, finally came out of hiding earlier today, and he said with the direction the Knicks are moving in, they'd be better off somewhere else when it was in regards to Carmelo Anthony. And Melo just went to Instagram and put a great picture up there and then just had the caption of really in all capital letters with 2 emoji faces. So I guess Carmelo was paying attention to what Phil Jackson had to say. And you know my take on this. Phil has done an awful job with the Knicks, and say what you want about Carmelo Anthony, he's not done a good job handling Carmelo Anthony this year with the cryptic tweets and then the public comments today. And I don't know what you're going to get back for Carmelo Anthony now. They want a significant player. I don't see it. So let's talk some hoops with someone that covers basketball for Forbes and Sirius, and that's Mitch Lawrence, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Mitch, appreciate a few minutes, and how are you?
Well, like I just tweeted, Zach, I think Knicks fans would all agree Phil Jackson would be better off being somewhere else. I mean,
you're right.
It's just sad. I mean, this is now 3+ years or whatever, and Phil basically hasn't learned his job. He's not an executive. My only other tweet about this, can anybody remind me why Jim Dolan decided only a couple of days ago decided to bring Phil back for 2 more years? This is on Jim Dolan. This is his executive. Why did he do this? He could have cut. What he should have done, we all know, is he should have fired Phil Jackson. Give him his money, let him go get another executive who can do a better job. And that could be, you can find somebody probably on the street, me or you. So it all goes back to the owner. He puts up with this type of stuff. It's needless. It's unnecessary. The Knicks are a laughingstock.
Why didn't he move on, in your opinion?
Well, the thing about Jim Dolan is, first of all, he's a contrarian. He's always been that way. So in terms of Phil, when everybody says Phil's doing a bad job, he'll stick with him. Maybe he just doesn't want to pay him off. Maybe he feels like people will get on me again because, once again, I'll be a meddler, as Dolan has been before. Remember when Phil Jackson came to town, he brought Phil to town. Dolan was ecstatic for, basically saying, look, you guys can't bother me anymore. I have nothing to do with basketball. It's all on Phil. So Phil's acted as the lightning rod, and maybe Dolan just feels like, I can get at least a couple more years out of him doing that. If he can't be a basketball executive, at least I got a 6'9" lightning rod who's going to take all the heat off of me. But it's convoluted and it's warped, and it doesn't help you as an organization. It's also hard. I'll say this on the last comment on this part. Very hard to read Jim Dolan's mind.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I'm not a big Jim Dolan fan. We all know that if you listen to the show. And I've been against bringing in Phil Jackson from the start. But I thought he was in a tough situation because you look at what you're saying. All the fans were saying, well, Mr. Dolan, you got to step away and you got to let Phil run the team. And then you had the situation, well, if he does that and then gets out of it after 3 years, well, then people are going to say, well, here we go again with Mr. Dolan. I just think they delay the inevitable here of, hey, This is what it's going to be for 2 years, and then we're going to be back to square one all over again.
Well, the thing is, I think if Dolan would have fired Phil, I think fans would have said, wow, this is a good move. We like this meddling.
But then what's the plan
the meddling that Dolan's doing. He's showing something here. He's realized he's got to cut his losses. Of course, you and I and everybody else don't owe Phil Jackson $28 million. Over the last 2 years. So there's that. But, it's a very, very perplexing situation because it's not working. It hasn't worked. It continues to get more. It's just an embarrassing situation, and Dolan puts up with it. So it's just for Knicks fans, they got to be tearing their hair out because they know in 2 years Phil's not going to be around. Who knows what kind of roster they're going to have? Who knows what kind of rebuilding? And then there's the inevitable, well, what's Dolan's next move, which you always kind of have to hide your eyes over when you consider what Dolan's going to do.
There's no earth-breaking news from this press conference today, and we all know that Phil Jackson doesn't want Carmelo Anthony back. We've seen it all along this year. With Melo, and to me, you diminish his value basically when you publicly say all these things. What happens with Carmelo Anthony? Do they trade him over this summer?
Well, even if Phil Jackson didn't say anything about Carmelo Anthony, he's got his trade valuing gets lower by the day. He's on the downside physically. He's not the player he used to be. He's a liability at the defensive end. That's always been. He's not a leader. He's a very hard guy to build around. I mean, Phil makes it worse, don't get me wrong, But
it's
Carmelo
petulant
Anthony has
behavior.
been around so long. Carmelo Anthony has been around so long. He's played in so many games. Everybody knows his pluses and his minuses. So Phil's not killing his value that much. Where does he end up? If I'm Carmelo Anthony, just send me to LeBron James. Just send me to LeBron. I'll make it easy. Somehow get me to LeBron James's team if you can. Because if you're trying to chase a championship, and that's what Phil's right about, Carmelo should be gone. He should want to chase a championship. There's one person I want to align myself with. That's the guy who basically gets to June every year without fail. We'll see if they do that this year. But come on, that's where you have to be if you're a player. And especially it's a buddy of his, right?
Let me ask you this, though. With Phil this year, and you saw the cryptic tweets and you've seen the way that he handled this, it's really petulant behavior. Why does a guy that is that successful and a guy that has been, just this godlike figure in basketball for so long act this way? I just don't get it.
First of all, I'm surprised that he does that because the Phil Jackson that I knew and covered in Chicago and the Lakers is just this aloof, condescending, arrogant guy who thinks he's better than everybody else because he's got 11 rings. When he started to tweet, I couldn't believe that he had actually addressed the masses, And he admitted today he's not a good tweeter and he should stay off it, which we all know. But I'm telling you, Phil Jackson, if you were ever around him like I was on a lot of these scrums with the media, he looked down his nose at you. So it doesn't help. Look, no other team president does this. It makes the Knicks more of a circus. It makes them more of an embarrassment. I'm sure the people at the NBA have to be shaking their heads. For years and years, the Knicks, for the league, has just been an experience. They must just cringe whenever they see a Knick official, whether it's Jim Dolan or Phil Jackson or whoever, go to a podium. The other embarrassing thing is, Phil promised from day one he was going to be more transparent and there's going to change the culture and all this stuff. He hasn't talked to local media since September 22nd.
It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's not the media. He hasn't talked to – that means you haven't talked to the New York fans, the Knicks fans. And believe me, if they were staying away from the Garden in droves, he'd probably be fired. They show up relentlessly, sellout after sellout. So that shows you that Jim Dolan also doesn't have to be forced into doing anything.
He's not the only executive, though, that doesn't speak. Brian Colangelo, they brought him in, and it was the same thing. He's going to be more transparent. They get rid of Sam, and everything you hear is the lack of transparency. And Brian Colangelo, he doesn't speak that much often either, and he lies a lot.
Well, I've known Brian a long time. I knew him back in Phoenix and Toronto, and I'm surprised by that. I thought now he said that. Is it the owners who don't want him to talk? Sometimes ownership determines what you're going to do. Let me tell you something. Before Phil Jackson came to town, Jim Dolan's policy involving the media, he was totally anti-media. He didn't want his GMs to talk to the writers at all, to the beat people. He didn't want them talking at all. It's a very, very disheartening thing for fans because you just can't even get explanations from your team. So I'm surprised by what Brian's doing, but like I said, there's always sometimes the owners who you have to look at. And, Jim Dolan, let's face it, Zach, Charles Oakley had the most impact of any Knick this year because when he got in that fight, that smoked Dolan out of his little foxhole, right? And that got Dolan to talk not just about the incident, but that's where Dolan first started to tell you he's okay with Phil Jackson tweeting. He's okay with how he handles Carmelo Anthony. And by the way, he's okay if Phil continues for the next couple of years.
Honestly, Mr. Dolan needs a new PR person because some of the ways that he just goes out of the way to just make headlines this year, it's just absurd. Like the example with the fan a few nights ago when that happened where he cursed out the fan. You're the owner. All you have to say is, thank you for your advice. Give a little wave and walk away, and this is a non-story.
No. That's not Jim Dolan.
Yeah, well,
Jim
he's
Dolan
an idiot.
Thin skin. He picks fights.
He's a dope.
He especially, I knew this from writing about him for years, and Charles Oakley will vouch for, this happened to Charles Oakley and any fan. If you criticize Jim Dolan, he'll come back at you. He doesn't have the ability to step back and say, you know what, I'm the owner of the Knicks. I work X amount of money, billions of dollars, Cablevision. I'll let this guy have his say and I'll walk away. He wants to pick a fight. He wants to get involved. He wants to spar with you. It's not good. It's not good.
Well, he's an idiot because here's why. When you go back to the Oakley situation, and that's a tough battle for him to win, and at first I actually had some sympathy for him, but the minute he went on that Michael K show and he started talking and accusing Oakley of having an alcohol problem, whether it was right or wrong, that's just another thing. Just shut up. There's no need to go there. You're not going to win that battle.
No, you're absolutely right. But that's Jim Dolan. He's never handled the media well. Even when he used to talk, Jim, I remember a time when Jim Dolan used to talk to us twice a year. We used to go down to Charleston with the Knicks training camp.
What was that,
down
in the
in
Stone
Charleston,
Age?
South Carolina. And then after the year, he would talk, and he is totally now all he does is he picks fights and he talks to fans, and he talks to fans in an ugly way. It's not good.
Mitch Lawrence with us. Let's get back to the Sixers real quickly. Ben Simmons, who did not play at all this year, as you know, would not make any commitments yesterday to the Las Vegas Summer League, the training camp, or even opening night. What's going on with Ben Simmons? Is this just the media overreacting, or is there a concern when you move forward with the rehabilitation process?
Well, the concern I have is when somebody reported that Ben Simmons could have played the last 20 games but saw that he couldn't win the Rookie of the Year, so he didn't want to come back and play. That concerns me. That concerns me. You know, he has a sense of entitlement. The thing about Ben Simmons we know is he has a sense of entitlement about him. I mean, you talk to people at LSU, it got to be a point down there where, you know, they felt like, you know, Ben Simmons' whole attitude was, I'm doing you a favor by being here.
Well,
he's like that. That's the way he's wired. So you're going to have to put up with that. I would hope for his sake that he get out on the court in Summer League and play and show everybody, and especially himself, that he's totally healed and he can go at it. I just want to see, you know, if he's healthy and Embiid's healthy, what they have in Philadelphia. Because if both those guys are healthy, I said this on Sirius Radio today. Isola went nuts, Frank Isola. I said, you know what? They get those two guys on the court, Frank. They could have a playoff team next year.
Oh, I
could
agree
be eighth.
with you.
Why not?
I
They
think
could be
they could
seventh.
easily be a playoff team next year,
Yeah.
especially with the draft picks and the position
Sure.
that they may be with the lottery. But
It's
here's the
only
thing with
Eastern
Simmons.
Conference here.
Yeah. And even you even look at the Western Conference. I understand that too. I don't know if they'd be a playoff team in the West, but still, the quality of basketball these days isn't that great anymore. But here's the thing, though, Mitch, with Simmons, and you know this: everyone in Philadelphia, with the process that they've been through, they are dying to see a winner. I was at the games in January. The atmosphere was unbelievable from where it was a year ago. But if this kid has an attitude problem, and I think he's going to be a really good player, I do. But if he plays poorly early on and that attitude and he keeps on giving these smug answers, it will not fly here in Philly.
Of course it won't. Of course it won't. But one step at a time. Let's get him on the court, right? I mean,
well, you know
before
how we
we
are
start
here.
killing him for having a, you know, look, I hope it works out for them and him. But let me tell you something. He's got to get out on the court and produce. And as for Embiid, he had the most impact of any rookie. You just can't vote for the guy Rookie of the Year because he played 31 games. But
Agreed.
I mean, both ends of the court and what he did for that franchise and the sizzle and the, you know, his charisma and stuff, that's stuff that, man, you latch onto that, you say, yeah, this guy can take us places. The problem is now he's got back, knee, and foot issues. That's not good.
Yeah, it's a scary situation with him, and you hope it's not a career that you just say, oh, what would have been.
Exactly. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it does, but you even saw this year, and I don't know why they played him in the Rockets game, but you saw the ability in that Rockets game where he ran down the court and just delivered that big-time block on James Harden. Now, Mitch Lawrence with us right now from Forbes and Sirius. With the Eastern Conference, anything intrigue you with any of these games? Because I look at the East and these first-round matchups, and I don't see a big draw to watch these games.
Well, I think Atlanta could upset Washington. And, you know, it's a 5-4 deal, so it's always close. But something happened with Atlanta that last Sunday when they played Cleveland and won a game they had no business winning, came back from 26 down, came back from the dead. And talking to people around the league and people in Atlanta, they feel like, you know what, we've clicked on something, we've hit on something here. They feel like they've changed around their season just with a couple of games. So we're going to watch that. The obvious thing you'll look for is what team in the East out of Toronto, Boston, and Washington could push Cleveland, or maybe even Indiana. I don't know about Indiana. But those are the teams you look for. Now, I go back to Toronto. It looks like they're going to be the team maybe in the second round that finally somebody takes Cleveland to a seventh game in the East. Cleveland's very, very bad. We know that. Bad, just the way they ended the season, they've lost, 14 out of the last 24 games. They had a 4-game lead at one point for first place and blew that totally. Their defense is awful. What they have going for them is they still have their big three, and that's too much for most teams. In the playoffs, it's too much for any team in the East. Nobody's got a big three to match. Plus, Carmelo. LeBron and Kyrie, they are great. You know, they bail you out of late shot clock situations. So they've got all that going for them. We know them, and their ceiling is still the highest. We saw what they did against Boston in that game in Boston. But they are definitely vulnerable, and they're beatable. I just don't know if anybody in the East can take them with 7 games. I think if there's one team, though, it's Toronto, Zach.
How many games would that series be if they played?
Well, I'll say Toronto can get them to a 7th game. Ibaka makes them better. P.J. Tucker makes them better. I think they're going to, Toronto's not a team that scores easily. That is always a problem for them. But Lowry and DeRozan are good. And talking to them last week, they were in the Garden, and DeRozan was very, they're not cocky at all when it comes to Cleveland, but they know that last year's playoff experience of playing the Cavaliers, taking them to 6 games, is something that they can draw on and use confidence-wise if they see Cleveland again.
If it's the Celtics that end up matching up against the Cavs, how many games does that go?
4.
Oh, wow. You think a sweep?
They won't win a game. They're not going to win a game against them. They might win 1. But look, here's their problem. They're undersized. They know how to stop Isaiah Thomas, Cleveland. And the Celtics have no answer for LeBron or Kyrie. It's really a mismatch. I mean, it's a terror. That's what the Celtics have to hope for is that Toronto takes care of business, helps them out, and beats Cleveland.
The series that I'm really looking at in the first round, and everyone's looking at it, is, of course, the Thunder and the Rockets. MVP-wise, who would you vote for the MVP?
Westbrook. He made history. I mean, look.
I agree.
So here's the thing about, I think Harden had a fantastic year. There's no doubt about it. They won 55 games. The Rockets have won 55 games many times before in their history. When you want to say, well, you got to look at the win total. They didn't win 60. They didn't win 65. They were the 3rd seed. Russell Westbrook won 47 games somehow with that team that was really built for Kevin Durant and him. He's got very little help. And it showed because, he went 33-9 in the triple-doubles. They needed single one of those triple-doubles. Otherwise, they'd be out of the playoffs. So it's a historic year, and you really have to the way he played. And I think it's a close race. Believe me, it's not a landslide. I hear this talk about it's got to be unanimous. It ain't going to be unanimous. I just think historically there's significance to that record. It's significance to his year. James Harden a close second, and I put Kawhi Leonard 3rd.
With the stars resting this year, what do you make of that, Mitch?
Awful.
How does the league fix it?
Here's my standard line. The NBA set an attendance record. We're not talking about players. Okay? Here's the deal. Here's the problem. The general public looks at this from the outside and says, players, they're healthy. They can play. They don't want to play. All these teams use analytics, statistics, medicine, and stuff, saying, no, guys need to rest. But what the public is looking for, the paying public is saying, you guys can play, you just don't want to play. That's a bad look. That's why Adam Silver has a huge problem on his hands. And I'm telling you, the way to stop it, you could stop it immediately. Dock players a paycheck for not playing. Let me tell you something.
But how can you legally do that? How can you legally do that?
They would be lined up to play.
Yeah,
now,
but how do you legally do that?
You're going to get the union up. Go ahead. Let the union do all these grievances. If you really want to stop it. But Adam Silver, he doesn't want to start World War III. That would be World War III. If that were me, that's what I'd do.
Yeah, with everything going on in this country, that's how we're going to get to World War III. Very interesting. Mitch Lawrence, before we let you run, everyone, of course, is going to be predicting the Warriors and the Cavs. I'm assuming you're going the same way. Who wins it all?
Warriors. They're going to overwhelm people.
How many games?
Here's what I'm looking for. Who takes them to a 6th game? Who takes them to a 6th? Not even a 7th game. Who's going to win more than a game off them in a series? I don't know if anybody can. With Kevin Durant playing, he's okay with the knee, and Steph Curry looks like he's back to his assertive self. I think they have a chance to run the table in the playoffs, believe it or not. A chance. I don't know if they can do it. I give them a chance because they're just going to basically overwhelm people with their talent.
Any chance they rest some guys in the playoffs? I'm being serious.
Let me tell you something. LeBron was 0-8. The Cavs were 0-8. That's LeBron's argument for the MVP. When I don't play, they're 0-8. Right?
Yeah, but you got to go. When you have a guy that had triple-double, you still got to go with him, in my opinion.
But, no. Believe me.
I know.
Me, yeah. No, let me tell you, that's the great thing about the playoffs. No back-to-backs, no rest, no excuses. Go out there and play.
I'm telling you, you're going to see someone get rested in the first round.
No,
hold on. But if the Warriors are up,
don't worry about that.
If the Warriors are up 3-0, why not rest someone? You could rest one of those guys and still win.
You have to keep guys in rhythm at this time of year. They're not going to mess around with that. Believe me. There'll be nobody.
I hope
resting.
so. I hope so. You never know. Maybe if one of these teams are down 3-0, maybe they just rest someone and say, "Hey, we want to go home."
Well, that I don't care about because that team's out the door on vacation.
Mitch, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Anytime.
Great stuff. There's Mitch Lawrence joining us from Forbes and Sirius. Always a funny guy when you bring him on. And You could hear he's not happy with Phil Jackson. No one should be happy with Phil Jackson because he has done a miserable job in New York. And to me, it's so tough what Dolan had to do. Because if you get rid of him, you have everyone saying, well, this is once again Dolan jumping in. And I know there would have been some people, oh, no, this is the right basketball decision because Phil's never going to make the Knicks a winner. And I was skeptical of that from the start. I said it would not work from the start. I did not like it. But that's what they went. And the question is, who do you bring in to clean up this big-time mess that you're going to need multiple janitors to clean up this mess? And we'll see who gets that Knicks job next. But the Knicks, for a very long time, are going to continue to be a laughingstock in the league. And then with the Sixers, I don't want to sound like I was killing Ben Simmons. So I open up the show. Yesterday, it would have been a little bit nicer to see him give some longer answers. But overall, with Ben Simmons, just show up and play. If you could, I don't believe this is going to be a chronic issue. Just show up and play. And I believe he'll do that, and he'll do that very well. And no one will remember this attitude and the smug answers that he gave the other day. And there are some concerns, though, because there is a level of selfishness with Ben Simmons. But overall, I think he's going to be a good player, and that will have a lot of people forget about what happened yesterday. And some people, they won't care. They go, it's just a player talking to the media. That happens. And then finally, it's the NBA playoffs. In the Western Conference, it's going to be the Warriors, and in the East, it's going to be the Cavs. It's a guarantee. 609-919-9200, 437 is the time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will flip the conversation from basketball to pucks. As when we come back, we will wrap up the Flyers season with their head coach, Dave Haxtell, who joins us next.